Hey guys, it's Van Fidel again. In this video I wanted to take you guys inside the grinder and show you guys a little bit about how everything works, give you a little behind the scenes. If you haven't seen the overview video, just check it out and you can see kind of a little bit about just how the grinder works beside, like on the surface level. You can see how the creatures fall down here. There are the indicator columns here. But anyways, I'm not going to go over any of that today. Today we're just going to go inside the grinder, and I'm also going to go a little bit into the redstone switch stuff, and kind of just a little bit about like what's all going on behind the scenes. So this grinder, I made it using kind of like a modular framework, so each level is its own module, and you can keep stacking on levels on top of each other. And let me just go inside. You can see there's some redstone going on out here, and I'll go over the redstone later. And so I actually drank a night vision potion just before. Let me just refresh my night vision. And I don't want to flood anything out here while I do it. I'll just take another night vision potion so it doesn't wear off while I'm in there. And let's go inside. Alright, so I'll actually put the schematics, this ceiling, there's a ceiling here, but it's just not loaded. I'll put the schematics in the description on my website, a link for it, if you actually want to see on paper basically how this design works. But it's pretty basic. There's a dispenser here that dispenses a bucket of water each time it's triggered, and you can see it just went triggered. And this is just the radius of the water, and so when mobs spawn on this level, when the water's off, and then after a certain amount of time the water turns on and it flushes the mobs off. And the mobs will get flushed off of each level consecutively, and each level it just alternates how they're facing, the direction of where they get flushed. That way the mobs from there will get flushed down to here, this level gets flushed down to this level, which gets flushed down to this level. And this is pretty much the most compact design that I could really think of if you're going to do like flushing water. Unless you're, well, you could make it a little bit more compact, but this is the most compact with the biggest surface area for mobs to spawn that I could think of. So they have a lot of surface area to spawn, and if you need more surface area, if you're not spawning enough mobs, you could always add more layers on top of this thing. So you can see it's all made of all random mixed blocks, just because it took a long time to mine all of this stuff, and like I said, this was one of the first things I ever made on this server, just because I wanted the TNT and the drops and all the. You get a lot of good drops from mobs. Oh, looks like there's one off over there actually. Every once in a while, I'll come and do some work in here. Every once in a while, an Enderman will pull a block and mess something up, and then I'll have to come inside here and do a little bit of just fix up a few things. But it looks like everything's working pretty well right now. You can see there are a few blocks missing here and there, like there's one there missing, there's one there missing from Enderman, but these blocks aren't going to affect how the grinder actually works. So a lot of the times Enderman will pull a block that doesn't actually do anything. And then on the bottom level, so here's the bottom level, there's where all the monsters drop down. It's right in the very center. Oh, it's dangerous. And I seriously, I can't tell you how many times I've fallen down there. I'm scared to even go near this area because the water's gonna turn on, just gonna push me right in. So, yeah, here it comes. And yeah, I've fallen down there like lots of times. Like this, it's pretty deadly working on these grinders, especially in survival mode. So you can see what happens when the water turns on. It flushes everything down to the central channel. When they get in the central channel, they just go right down to the center. And that's it. There's no one spawning right now because I'm in the grinder. But once I leave the grinder and I get like a little ways away, then creatures will start spawning. So let's go outside. I'll show you guys the outside, how the redstone's all wired up. And actually, when I was working on this at first, I didn't know you could hold shift to like not fall. So I definitely took a few more casualties than I needed to. But if you're working on something like this, hold shift, and the game will not let you fall off the edge. Like I'm trying to fall off and I'm holding shift, it's not possible. So anyways, I showed you inside there are dispensers. Inside of each dispenser, there's a bucket of water. And you can see when it triggers, the bucket gets dumped, and then when it triggers again, then the bucket refills itself with whatever it dumped. So it's pretty basic. So all you need to do to make this work is you run redstone to the block that's behind your dispenser. So you can see I have a redstone running all the way across, and I have these repeaters here in order to just strengthen the signal so that way it reaches all the way across. So I have a repeater on this side, and then I should have a repeater on the other side. Yep. So I have actually the signals running on both sides. So this repeater, so you see it comes in right here, and then it triggers on this side, and then this one goes all the way down and triggers on the other side. And it actually matters how many blocks are here, because this redstone, after the repeater, it only goes a certain number of blocks. And so that's why I have a repeater on both sides. But if you have these two close to each other, then you'll have ones in the middle that it'll get triggered by that repeater, and it'll get triggered by that repeater on the other side. And it'll basically turn on and then turn off. So it'll dump the water and then suck the water back up, which you don't want. So I'll put the dimensions in a link in the description if you want to know the exact dimensions, because the exact dimensions actually do matter here, where the repeater is. Because like I said, I think the repeater goes 8 redstone units off the top of my head. I'm not exactly sure, but so I think this is probably 16 blocks deep, but I'll put the link in my description for the actual specifications. And then here's the same thing on the other side. You can see it's exactly the same design. It's cable, there are repeaters on both sides, and then on the other side there are the dispensers with water buckets. And every single level works exactly the same. So there's just redstone, and on the other levels, obviously, it's only going to this very center one, because there's only one bucket on every other level besides this level. And then the way I get the signal up here is I have all these stacked on top of each other. If you stack 2 blocks and in between you put a redstone torch, then it acts as kind of a cable. And then you make sure that you are getting your redstone signal off of one that's dead until you want to trigger it. So it isn't that difficult. If so you see this one's on right now, so if I were to get a signal off of this one, it would be on. So anyways, I'm not really going to go too much into that. Let's go, I'll just show you real quick one of the levels, and yeah, these are a little bit dangerous because they're on fire, but you can see I just have redstone running up to this block right here, and on the other side of the block there's a dispenser, and the dispenser has a bucket. And it's the same thing with every single level, they're just alternating sides. So let's go down and I will show you how some of the stuff on the roof works, because if you remember from the last video, I had a button in here that I can push, and when this button is activated, this column activates. You can see the column's activated now, and when this column is activated, then it's in experience mode, so the monsters actually don't die when they reach the bottom. You can see the bottom is empty, devoid of monsters right now, but now when they start dropping, they're going to fall down there and they're going to still stay alive, but they're going to stay alive at 1 health. And the other redstone part of this is these columns, each time the grinder is dumping, the columns turn on. So not only does my signal trigger the grinder to dump, but it also triggers these columns to dump as well. And now we have experience mode on. I'll just show you a little bit about how all that works. So I'm going to go downstairs. I don't know if you noticed this, but on my floor you can see the redstone repeaters down there. You can see that's where the signal is. Once it reaches the end, it's pretty early on, but once it reaches the end, then it triggers everything. So it's dumping right now. Once it reaches the end, it'll turn off. It'll stop dumping. But I'll go down to that level, and let's see. It's right here. So this is just repeaters, just all lined up against each other, and you can see I have them set to 3 ticks, and that's just to make the amount of time pretty long. So what this does is it means the grinder will continually work whether I'm here or not, or so basically when the signal reaches the end, it'll turn on, and then the signal's just in a loop, so it'll go back around, all this. So this is really just an intricate timer. All this redstone, it just times the event of turning on and turning off the grinder, and you can see when it reaches the end, it just goes out. There's even more timer gears down here, and this is where I collect everything. You should have potentially you already saw this in the other video, but okay, so I'm going to go to the roof, which is basically the last portion of the grinder and how it works, and I'll show you how all that works. So actually it's a little bit dangerous working on the roof, just because when I had this experience mode, when I was setting up the experience mode, every once in a while you'll get creatures that they just get stuck in here sometimes when you're working on it, and they blow you up. So this is actually a side port that I'll show you how all the redstone works for this later, but this allows you to get creatures out of the grinder. Instead of having them fall to their death or fall to 1 HP, you can actually have them fall and come out of this side port. And this is actually even cooler, because then you could do kind of interesting stuff like launch them or do all kinds of other stuff with them. But you can see so the redstone, it circles around down there, and then eventually it hits this wire that goes all the way up to the top of the grinder, and then loops back on itself. But when it reaches this point, it goes off in that direction, and it goes off in this direction, and it triggers a few things. So it just basically triggers, let me go around, yeah, it works right. Basically triggers these water buckets. So there's a water bucket right here, you can see, that gets triggered when the grinder gets triggered, so it's turning on the water and off the water at the same time the water's turning on and off up there. And then the same thing with these water buckets. Here's a water bucket right here. It's the same exact thing, it's just a dispenser with a water bucket, and it's hooked up to redstone, and it's on the same track that everything else is on. So the experience mode, the way that one works is it's kind of similar. You can see this is the cable coming out from the experience mode. It just comes up to the top, and it goes, oh, this is actually a different cable. I think this one's the experience mode cable. This one is to activate the side port, but I think this is the experience mode cable. Yeah, see, it comes out of the house. If you actually break this block right here, you'll see, this is that button down there, and I'll just fill it with cobblestone right now. I'll fix it later. So it comes up to this corner right here, and then it just goes out here, and it goes all the way up here, and on both sides. And actually what it does is, yeah, I guess I'll break some of this a little for you, so you guys can look at it. This is unnecessary. So it activates this water dispenser, and this water dispenser is actually sitting on top of some signs. So if you see there's a sign, there's a sign, there's a sign, 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 sign. And what the signs do is the signs do not allow water to pass through, but they allow the creatures to pass through. So it doesn't flood or anything. It's about to dump right now, and it's actually going to be very dangerous if anything lands here. So I'm just going to block this up right now. But so the creatures they'll hit the water, and they'll get slowed by the water, and the slow of their of the water is enough to make them hit the bottom with 1 HP, basically, or you set the number of blocks to basically determine the amount of HP. But once they hit the bottom, then you can go down there and you can just kill them with a bow or with a poke. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I'll have more videos coming soon, and I hope this was beneficial to you and inspired you to build some cool stuff on your own survival world. So yeah, leave me some comments, send me some videos on stuff that you've made in survival mode, I'd like to see. Oh, this guy's going.